Namanda, 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 namanda. Morning, everyone. Morning. And welcome to our September Shotsuki Hoyo at the Buddhist Church of San Francisco. My name is Leo Ballenbau, and I will be your presenter today. I'd like to first welcome Yoshi Yao to read the names of our Shotsuki members. Thank you.
When you hear your one's name called, you can Oshoko at your home shrine and remember and honor the following.
Thank you, Yoshi. Now we will have the reading of the three treasures, which is found on page 15 of the Purple Service Book. Actually, it's on page 8 of the Purple Service Book. Hard is to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken in ourselves the supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony, in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda Butsu. Namanda Butsu. Now we will have Sutra chanting by Reverend Keisuke Lee-Miyaki, and we'll begin with the Sambujo, which is found on page 24 of the Purple Service Book, followed by Junirai on page 67. Thank you.
Namanda, 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 Namanda. To enter this practice hall as we joyfully scattered and offered flowers of welcome. call upon Shakyamuni Tathagata to enter this practice hall as we joyfully offer flowers of welcome. We respectfully call upon the 10 directions of the Tathagata to enter this practice hall as we joyfully offer flowers of welcome. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. Junirai. So 無節無悪名薬無尿に悪道不主任死心拒否損子が将来未だ損非損無料法勉強無所主悪知識往生不体死亡大子が将来未だ損我説非損苦毒事修善無変如海水小逆前音小上者衛生主上小非公
Thank you, Sensei. We will now have a Dharma talk given by Reverend Elaine Donlin.
The entire cosmos is a cooperative. The sun, the moon, the stars live together as a cooperative. The same is true for humans and animals, trees, and the earth. When we realize that the world is a mutual, interdependent, cooperative enterprise, we can build a noble environment. If our lives are not based on this truth, then we shall perish. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandots, namandots, namandots. Good morning. It is wonderful to be here this morning, back in the Hondo, live streaming the services from the Hondo, which we're going to be doing from now on. Even when we come back in person, we will still live stream for those who are not here in San Francisco. For me, it's really wonderful to be back in the Hondo because I consider this place a sacred place. I consider it my spiritual home. The quote I just read was from a well-known and influential Thai Buddhist monk and philosopher of the 20th century, Buddhadasa Bhikkhu. And he speaks of a noble environment in a much wider perspective than I just did in referring to our spiritual home here at BCSF. As we approach our 80th week of this temple's closure due to the pandemic, I'm reflecting on what this idea of a sacred place is and what a noble environment really looks like. Without a doubt, the effects of this global pandemic has peeled away much more than our global interdependence as the pandemic races around the world. COVID-19 is disrupting lives and livelihoods around the world. The most important consequence are the public health crisis and the associated economic and humanitarian disasters, which have historic impacts on human beings. And here in the US, it is peeled away and lifted up environmental, economic, and socio-political inequalities that have been compounded for generations. COVID-19 is not an equal opportunity virus. Its presence has shined a blistering spotlight on America's pandemic of inequality. And everything we know so far says that its burden falls disproportionately on low-income communities and communities of color. We're seeing the workings of cause and effect. Yet, additionally, after widespread sheltering and other restrictions, the impact of human interactions on our planet became quantifiably clear. Bay Area pollution levels continuously declined after March 17, 2020, when most counties initiated stay-at-home orders. And we saw lower carbon emissions on a global level as well. Sheltering and mobility statistics from different areas of the world are now a source of information that can be used to understand causality with respect to the planet's responses. Animals also seem to have reaped some rewards during this time of human sheltering in place, as they wandered into areas they typically avoided because of activity or noise. There is an uptick of coyote sightings here in San Francisco on social media. Yosemite National Park rangers have said that bears were coming out a lot more frequently. Cause and effect. While it's really promising to read about the environmental benefits, it's important to recognize that these gains are only temporary unless specific actions are taken. But still, this period of time has provided insights that could help leaders at all levels map out a cleaner, safer future for us all. I am often reflecting on one of the Buddha's iconic images. It's the Buddha sitting with one palm upright in his lap while the other hand touches the earth. This, it is said, occurred because Mara, representing the forces of greed, anger, and ignorance, demanded that Siddhartha produce a witness to confirm his spiritual awakening. Siddhartha, remaining calm to Mara's provocations, gently reached out his hand and touched the earth. And the earth responded, "I am your witness." Mara then quickly vanished, and Siddhartha finally saw the answer to the question of suffering that he had been seeking for so many years. It was at that moment he realized enlightenment. It is written that the morning star appeared in the sky, and Siddhartha became a Buddha, the awakened one. It is this moment of supreme enlightenment that is the central experience from which the whole of the Buddhist tradition unfolds. A mudra is a gesture or a pose with symbolic meaning. So the gesture of touching the earth, which is also called the earth witness mudra, represents steadfastness. Because of Siddhartha's steadfastness in remaining immovable tomorrow's taunting and tempting. On one hand faces the sky in his lap in a meditative posture, while the other hand is outstretched, touching the earth. And so taking in the latest news and seeing all the suffering in Louisiana from Hurricane Ida and the deadly flooding that has taken place in New Jersey and New York, adding to increasing climate challenges throughout the world, I've asked myself, has Mara taken on a new form? Reflecting on the destruction and suffering, I have to say perhaps. Maybe Mara, representing our ignorance, our aversion, our greed, has taken the form of our present ecological crisis. This earth has observed so much more than the Buddha's awakening. For the last 3 billion years, the earth has been witness to the evolution of over 5 billion species, 99% of which are now extinct, from single-cell organisms to the amazing complexity of plant life and animal life that we know today. And we're a part of this evolution. Intellectually, we know that existence of all things on earth is interdependent. Our teachings have been saying this for 2,700 years. It's been saying that we're not separate from this earth, nor from nature, nor from other beings, and that it is supremely ignorant of us to separate ourselves from any of it, as we depend on this earth. We depend on this earth for fresh air to breathe, for clean water to drink. We depend on other life forms to live. Our existence depends on these things just as these things depend on our existence, all because of our interdependent nature. Reverend Yasuo Izumi from the Buddhist Temple of Southern Alberta, Canada, once said, quote, "We individually and collectively create our own environment. We must try to live harmoniously and not selfishly. We must try to live with respect and caring for the environment and with a mindfulness that all living things are precious. We must treat our environment with care and not be wasteful. Even a sheet of paper or a piece of cloth must be received with gratitude." I love and appreciate that perspective. Back at the time of the historical Buddha, Siddhartha had his monks dressed in robes made from rags. At that time, the Buddha initially instructed his monks to gather cloth material from what he called pure cloth. And by pure cloth, the Buddha was talking about cloth made from that which appealed to no one else, right? So there was no attachment to it. And these were materials that were considered rags and not of any use. For example, the recommended cloth included torn cloth, cloth burned by fire, and cloth used as shrouds, mostly for dead bodies. As a result, the Buddhist monks would search for cloth thrown away in garbage dumps, and then they'd cut out the parts that they couldn't use. Then they'd wash the cloths and sew them into one larger cloth. At this stage, they would dye the cloth with plant matter, including roots, barks, and leaves. But the main ingredient used for the dye was the spice turmeric, which is what gave the robes an orange-yellow color. And it was only later that the Buddha allowed his monks to receive cloth donated from local villagers. So I think ecology, which is the study of the relationship between living organisms, including humans, and their physical environment, is actually interwoven into the fabric of the Buddhist teachings. Mindful ecology implies a humility, right, of not needing the latest, the greatest, the newest, or the finest. If we base our life and conduct on the truth of interdependence and cooperation, we transcend that notion that Buddhist practice takes place only in a temple or a Dharma center. Instead, we come to realize the importance of integrating the practice of interdependence mindfully into our everyday life. In the Amida Sutra, the Pure Land is described in detail as the glorious manifestations of a realized Buddha land of perfect bliss. Shinran called it the land of peace and the land of all-knowing wisdom. As Reverend Inagaki explained, it is a transcendent reality explained in terms of cause and effect in the world of experience. Cause and effect. Today's Shotsuki Hoyo service is also a reminder of cause and effect and interdependence, and also impermanence. For those of you here for this September Shotsuki Hoyo monthly memorial, you intimately know impermanence. And by virtue of coming together today in honor of your loved ones, you also know interdependence. The teaching tells us that attempting to live in the past only brings sadness and frustration, while attempting to live in the future keeps us fearful and anxious with uncertainty. The Nembutsu is right here, this moment, no calculation. Just a spontaneous affirmation of gratitude for our profound interdependence and precious impermanence. This morning, I'm thinking of Shinran's words, "If I am behind, I will be guided by others. If I go first, I will guide others." So we come together today to remember and honor our guides who have preceded us, who brought us together to hear the Dharma and to say the Nembutsu. Their kindness reaffirms the working of the compassionate vow. I'd like to close with a writing from Shinran Shonin that's found in the Notes on the Essentials of Faith Alone. Buddha nature is none other than Tathagata. This Tathagata pervades the countless worlds. It fills the hearts and minds of the ocean of all beings. Thus, plant, tree, and land attain Buddhahood. Since it is with this heart and mind of all sentient beings that they entrust themselves to the vow of the Dharma body of compassionate means, this Shinjin is none other than Buddha nature. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namandots. 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 Please stay healthy and connected. Thank you.
Thank you, Sensei. We will now have a Gatha, our pledge. Music composed and performed by BJ Soriano. Words written by Gomonchu Kojun Otani.
Reaching out to others, reaching out to others, I will share a smile and gentle words, just like the Buddha who always calls out with aloha, breaking away from my greed, anger and ignorance. I will try to live in peace and harmony. chest to wall. Moving forward from self-centeredness, I will share a life of joy and sorrow with others. Just like the Buddha, whose caring heart always embraces us. Realizing that I live because of others, I will strive to live to the fullest with an attitude of gratitude. Just like the Buddha, who promises to embrace us all. Just like the Buddha, who promises to embrace us all.
Share a meditative closing reading with all of you. And this comes from the book Buddhism of the Heart, which is a compilation of short essays written by Jeff Wilson. And here's the book, Buddhism of the Heart. Inner togetherness. When Europeans first encountered Buddhism, they believed it was a negativistic, nihilistic faith. This was based on a misunderstanding of the true meaning of the Buddha's insight into the vital issue of suffering and the poorly understood concept of shunyata, emptiness, which they thought meant nothingness. What's more, they were horrified by a religion that doesn't give credence to the idea of God or the individual soul. While Westerners' understanding of Buddhism has generally become more sophisticated, these original misconceptions still haunt many people's ideas about the Dharma. How can a religion whose core realization is emptiness possibly be any other than nihilistic? This concept of shunyata is linked historically to the Indian monk Nagarjuna, who is considered the first of the 7 great Pure Land masters of the past by Shin Buddhism. The point Nagarjuna was making about shunyata was that all things arise interdependently, thus they are empty of self-nature. I can remember what an impact it had on me years ago when I encountered the Vietnamese Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh translation of shunyata as interbeing. When emptiness is seen as interrelatedness, as in the concept of interbeing, it can become more approachable. It avoids sort of the traps that ideas of nothingness tend to include. Here was the key I needed to really move affirmatively into Buddhism. I had a similar moment of insight and appreciation when encountering the work of the Shin scholar Kaneko Dae, who speaks of the idea of inner togetherness in his essay, The Meaning of Salvation in the Doctrine of Pure Land Buddhism. One thing should be remembered in connection with the problem of suffering. Every one of us human beings is deeply interrelated with fellow beings in an inner togetherness. It can hardly be doubted that we are born as to be sensitive of our inner togetherness. Do we not implicitly mean this when we use the term we? In this sense, our inner togetherness may be called we-ness. As long as our fellow beings are unhappy, none of us can remain aloof from them. We cannot but share the unhappiness with them. Because of the inner togetherness of man, sympathy can be awakened within us. For Kaneko, togetherness is the fulfillment of the Bodhisattva ideal, which strives to create an awareness of co-identity between beings so that they will assist each other in the universal work of liberation. As I understand it, togetherness also functions as a synonym for shunyata, emptiness as a togetherness of all things co-arising, simultaneously, all dependent on one another. This togetherness is realized in Shinjin, the trusting heart, which we see that we are all mutually embraced by Amida. From this rises the grounds for Pure Land activism in the world, seeing the equality of self and other and realizing that our opponents suffer from the same afflictions we do. When we see this, we can put aside egoism and work to create the conditions for peace. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 namanda Butsu. Thank you. I'd like to offer my appreciation and thanks this morning to Reverend Keisuke Lee-Miyaki for chanting, for our Dharma talk, Reverend Elaine Donlin, for reading the names, Mrs. Yoshiao, and also for Kevin Yoza, who is our AV Zoom coordinator. Thank you. Just a few announcements. Next Sunday is our Fall Ohigan service, and we'll have a guest speaker, Reverend Kodo Umezu, who's the former bishop of the Buddhist Churches of America. Are there any other announcements? This concludes this morning's September Shotsuki Hoyo service. Thank you for joining us. Please stay safe and healthy. Thank you. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, 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 namanda.